Welcome. This is Jason Yormark for the Socialistics podcast. I am really excited about our guest today. I have Xenia Muntean from Planable, and I just wanted to share a little bit about our experience with Planable before we kind of dive into our discussion. We, as an agency, we kind of flipped through a lot of different social media platforms. Obviously, that's a big part of what we do. And I'm not going to name names and talk about the ones that didn't work out for us. But just know that, we flipped around between 3 or 4 platforms over the course of a couple of years. And really what it came down to was none of them got it right. They just, whether it was the reporting element, the publishing, the content management, something was amiss. And it just never worked for us. So we just constantly were looking for the right technology stack formula that would help our agency do the best work that we can do, not only from an efficiency standpoint, but to do right by our clients. And I think the biggest glaring weakness that we saw across a lot of the platforms that we were using is that they just weren't client friendly. It made it difficult to manage content for clients in a way that was easy for them, easily accessible, easy to manage. And to us, that was the most important thing. Look, if things are going to be, if we had to make the choice between efficiencies gained on the client side versus internally, we're going to take client side every time. We want them to have the best experience possible. And then we can suffer internally and figure that out. And nobody just seemed to get that right. And then I can't quite remember, but luckily we stumbled across Planable, and I was really intrigued by the fact that they really focused on one thing, and it was that content management piece, especially from the client perspective. And I was so drawn into that. I was so excited about being able to provide that for our clients. And then literally within, I think we started the trial, and we knew within a week that this was what we wanted, and immediately kind of exited our all-in-one platform and moved towards an environment where we started to pick technology that focuses on a singular thing. So we did that with Planable. We did that with the other technology stacks, and it has been the best decision as an agency that we ever made, because now we have the best of everything when it comes to each element of what we do from a social media management standpoint. So I wanted to share that story just because it's so relevant to today's guest. Xenia is so excited to have you. She's the CEO of Planable, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jason, for having me on the show and for such kind words. This is probably the best intro I've ever had.
Well, it's genuine.
At least sits well with me.
Yeah.
The best one for my pride.
Well, it's authentic. I'm not just saying that. We've had so much success with it. So enough about that. But tell me, I want to learn about you. I want to learn a little bit more about your Planable journey. But let's start with, tell me about yourself and your path to Planable. How did you get there? Where did your career start? Kind of take me through that journey.
So, long story. I'll try to keep it as short as possible, but it all starts probably in high school. I was passionate. I was really obsessed with advertising since I was a teenager, probably. So I always wanted, my dream was to work in like this creative, mad agency type of thing, mad world agency. I always wanted to sometimes in my future build an agency. That was like the dream. And it actually happened. I was just lucky event that happened. But I started my own social media marketing agency during my second year of university. I had a couple of clients that I was doing social media content production and management for their, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages, all of that. And during that time, I learned, what it actually means to build content in terms of the operations and the processes and all the back and forth. And I just didn't enjoy it. I felt like there was something broken with the process. We were using spreadsheets and too many emails back then. And I felt like there must be a tool out there to just help with how I presented work to clients so that I can get, approvals and feedback from them. And something to also help me align myself internally with my team. So as, looking for tools, I tried, all the tools on the market. Not going to name them as well. So I tried a bunch of them, and I felt like they were really, really helping me with a bunch of things around social media management, like analytics and listening and the publishing side of it. They were doing a pretty good job there. But in terms of the client relationship, in terms of the entire workflow, in terms of what happens before you actually schedule something, all of that behind the scenes, I didn't feel like they were covering it, or at least I didn't feel like they were covering it as I imagined it. Ideally, I was envisioning this very collaborative space, very neat, very, very visual as well, because I remember back in my agency days, I had this unpublished Facebook page where my team was going, and they were like mocking up posts and taking screenshots and sending it to our clients, because sometimes clients were asking, how is this going to look like in the end? So they didn't have, any visibility. And sometimes, with formats that clients were not familiar, like carousel posts, for example, it's really hard. It was really hard for them to imagine how that stuff is going to look like in the end. So I remember my team was going on that unpublished Facebook page and taking screenshots. And as you can imagine, that was a big waste of time. So I was trying to optimize it as much as possible. And together with my two co-founders, they also worked in agencies back then. We decided that, we need to build something like that. We hoped that we're not the only ones that were in this situation. So we did a bit of customer development. We talked with some agencies, in the US and in Western Europe. And we tried to figure out if this is a problem that is just across the globe. And when we realized that many others need something like that, we decided to go full in.
Awesome. I love that. I love how you talk about that singular approach. I mean, I can't stress enough to anybody that's listening, that's either an agency owner or considering that path, that there's so much to be gained by working with a technology partner that is so laser focused on a particular area like what you guys do. I just think, as a generalist, you can't possibly do as good of a job as a specialist. There's just the depth of thought and planning that goes into delivering a technology solution when you're laser focused on one thing. It's such a huge, huge difference. Our clients have absolutely loved the experience since we've transitioned to this model, just because it makes it easier for them. Time is money, and people want to be more efficient in how they manage what they do. And it has certainly done that for us. So tell me a little bit more about, I'm kind of curious, before we kind of dive into Planable a little bit more, I want to dig in a little bit into your agency life. I mean, this is a social media, the title is Social Media Agency Stories. And I know you were more of a digital marketing agency, but tell me a little bit, like, what are your biggest takeaways or memories from those experiences as an agency owner?
So in terms of struggles and challenges, because that's what you remember the most, right?
Sure.
Negativity bias. From a challenges perspective, I remember there was really hard, especially with social media, it was really hard to educate clients. I remember that was one of the biggest challenges that I had. It felt like everyone with a Facebook account could do social media, and so much time has passed since then, and I can still see that in the market. With social media specifically. It's not like the other more technical things like design or maybe branding or paid, just because it feels like everyone can create a post on social media, everyone can do social media marketing, which is so far from the truth. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the biggest challenges, especially because the market of social media services was fairly new back home. So it's really hard to educate, and it was really hard to put a price on it as well. Like the ROI was probably not, it was really hard to make a margin out of that. That was one of the biggest challenges. Talent as well. I feel like finding, because social media is such a versatile job. you need to have an eye for design. You also need, copywriting. You also need to think a bit strategically. There's so many things in it. It's a very complex position that you need to have. And I think that was one of the other challenges, just the talent and also educating the client and like really selling the services. I mean, not getting new clients, but like really conveying the importance of social media to them.
Yeah. When you think about what you experienced and where we kind of live today in terms of the landscape of agencies, if you had to kind of pick 1, 2, 3 things, however many things come to mind, giving advice to someone that's looking to start an agency, what are the things that kind of come to mind that you would advise somebody to kind of be thinking about as they go down that path?
So one of the other challenges that I had, and that's actually going to take me to my answer to your question, one of the other challenges was that it was so much harder to do social media for clients in industries that I had absolutely no clue about. And I had clients in those industries, but we did, good work, but it was so much harder. And that means, more time invested in that. So I guess pick your tribe is a good advice. Just, pick a niche. And I see, lots of our customers that are okay in the social media marketing space, but at the same time, they do focus on specific industries, or find some kind of other way of like focusing on something, maybe not industries, maybe just a particular type of, service within social media marketing. But I think that the more as an agency you spread, the less you can do with your time.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love that. I agree. I definitely think that the agency landscape is changing quite a bit in that regard. I think new ones that are popping up are very niche focused. I think there's a lot of consolidation. A lot of agencies are buying other agencies. So it's interesting times for sure. So thank you for that. Let's dive back into Planable. I want to learn a little bit more about the history. So what I really love, so I'm a huge Shark Tank watcher. I'm enamored with people that stumble across ideas in their personal or professional lives, like a need isn't being met, and that's how things are invented and born. And that certainly sounds like that was the case here. So touch on a little bit about how how that came to be and the birth of Planable, and a little bit about the history and where you guys are at today.
Yeah. So we're 3 co-founders, and we started the company about 4 years ago. And we were, all of us were working in the industry. I had my own agency. My technical co-founder worked for an agency. So we were very familiar with the industry. And when we started talking about Planable, we kind of we realized that we have common pain points in our day-to-day work. I definitely had pain points just by observing how my team works, and my technical co-founder, Nick, he worked in an agency, and, as a developer, he was looking at his colleagues just wasting so much time on inefficiencies, and his mind just couldn't understand it. How can it be so hard? Why is there no tool out there? So that's how, we got together and we started working on Planable. We went, like a typical startup, we went through a couple of accelerators. We got, a seed investment. And, the first couple of months were so much in customer development. And that means, just interviewing potential users in the future of Planable and talking to them about their day-to-day pain points. What does it look like? What are they doing? How are they trying to solve it? Would they pay for a solution? How much would they pay for a solution? And so on and so on. Mm-hmm. And that's extremely, extremely crucial to do in the beginning. You just need to figure out if you're going to build something that people will need, or if that's, just a problem that you're the only one that has it, an edge case. So that's a big chunk that, we did. And then for about 1.5 years, we were in beta. We were testing the product a lot. We had about 1,000, beta users that were using the product for free, just giving us lots and lots and lots of feedback. That seems like a long time to do it, but we were a small team, and we needed to figure out if we're doing the right thing, so that when we launch, clients like you could really benefit of it and have a delightful experience. And yeah, we launched the product about 2 years ago, and it's been a roller coaster since then.
Awesome. So when you think about your life as an agency owner versus software as a service company, what do you think? What are the biggest differences that come to mind between the two for you?
Oh man, I'm going to think about the differences, but first of all, I'm going to tell you one thing that is very common, and you touched upon it a bit off the record, like the customer care. It's still there, like the relationships, building, taking care of customers. That seems like the same thing. Though in self-service, you have so much software as a service, you have so much more clients to take care of. So it's just the scale of it is a bit bigger. But the difference is, I think, just the delight of working on one single thing. Just like it's just one product, and you're constantly building it and improving it. And that might not work for everyone. Some people enjoy the agency life quite a lot because of its diversity, because you can be so creative and work on so many different projects, and that's what excites others. It excited me as well, but in time I realized that I really, really love really focusing in and zooming in on one particular thing and improving it to perfection. That is what I love most, and and I felt that back in my agency days, when this kind of sadness when I ended projects and I couldn't follow up and see what happened, with the business, with the company, what, the campaign in long term, what did it, do to the company, to its business, and so on. But with Planable, I feel like I'm more present. That's the idea.
Yeah, no, I love that. I know that there's a lot of, I think most agency owners always have an exit in mind. They're not going to do that forever. It's pretty rare. Cause it's hard. It's challenging. You're managing pretty deep relationships. There's a lot of client churn. You're constantly having to, and that exists in what you do as well.
That's normal.
But I can totally relate to having having a single product that you can kind of build and nurture and kind of build over time. So very cool stuff. So when you think right now, when you think about where Planable is at, what is the biggest challenge that you have that you're dealing with right now with Planable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the biggest challenge is just really, really, really figuring out where to take the product next. We definitely have a vision, and we've been working for the past year on, making this vision more detailed and more specific, and actually including it in the product roadmap. But at some point in time, you have to decide what you want to do with the product. And for social media, what we've built so far, it was all from our experience, from what we knew so far. But if we want to expand the product, we're kind of going into uncharted territory. If you want to do something else that I haven't had experience with, that's where it's really challenging. And that's, what we're struggling with the most. And also saying no is becoming harder and harder. Saying no to feature requests from customers is getting just harder and harder.
Yeah. Well, I love that you do that. So I know that you have kind of a really cool feature built into the platform where people can add feature requests and kind of vote on them. I always kind of check in on that, and because I love.
Oh, that's so nice.
I'm
happy to hear that's being used, actually.
Oh yeah. Well, I love seeing that. I mean, I think anytime you give your customers a voice and how you shape I think that's a fantastic thing to do. And you've kind of integrated it into the technology, which I love. So I mean, there's some stuff in there that I'm like, yes, definitely. I hope that you guys
one
work that in.
day.
But there's also things in there that I'm like, no, don't do that. Like there's one in there like add analytics and reporting, and I'm like, no, don't do that. That is not. Don't become another all-in-one, because then I think you're moving away from what makes what you do so great. So, yeah, I love that. I love the fact that voice of the customer is integrated into what you do. It just kind of just kind of lends itself to why we've loved working with you guys. So, what about surprises? When you think about your Planable, your journey, like what have been some of the biggest things you didn't see coming, or surprises along the way that you've encountered?
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Let me think a bit.
Yeah.
Surprises. I think there were definitely very surprising use cases of Planable, like funny ones as well, and like really enjoyable ones to look at. We've seen folks using Planable to like showcase their work, like a portfolio thing, which is a totally unexpected use case of Planable. But just like the creativity of people using Planable in different ways, in ways that we didn't design the product for, like, for example, agency influencer use case. We didn't really like design the product for influencers, brands, and agencies, this triangle. But some agencies are using it. So just the ways people are adapting Planable to work for themselves, because that's surprising and heartwarming in a way, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. Okay, I'm going to give you, I've got my handy dandy time machine here. You can go back in time, do something differently, whether it's Planable related or anything in your career. What's something that stands out that if you can kind of go back and do anything differently, what might that be?
It's hard to answer to this question, because I'm really happy with where we got with Planable and where we are right now. So I wouldn't change anything from that perspective, because I would be just too afraid to ruin where we are at this point in time. Yeah. But we could have definitely done more. Like I wish we have invested in SEO and content earlier. Like start building it from day one. Maybe we started building our blog way too late in our journey. So I wish we did that. And also I wish we took a bit more risks, maybe, especially later in this period of time, maybe in the past 2 years. I wish we were a bit more maybe adventurous. I feel like my Eastern European roots are making me be very cautious, maybe overly cautious with things sometimes. Yeah. And even my investors have told me that. So maybe, being a bit more bold, that's something, and building the brand as well. Those three things, boldness, building the brand, and investing in SEO early on.
Yeah. Love that. What are some things that you do to kind of continue to learn, stay on top of the curve as a CEO, as a marketer, as a product developer? Like, what are the things that you do to kind of keep yourself, ahead of those things?
So besides the usual, like reading a bunch of articles, and I'm subscribed to a few newsletters. I'm trying to dial down on the newsletters. I feel like I'm not really reading them. I have too many. So at the moment, I'm only subscribed to The Hustle. That's the only one that I actually read.
Yeah.
But besides that, usual thing, I talk to people. That's what I love doing quite a lot. So because I'm part of the Techstars family, we went through this accelerator called Techstars. They have a forum. So every time you have like an issue or a problem, or you need a connection or advice or anything, I just write a post there, and I talk to someone and I learn from them. Yeah. And I try and do that as often as I can, because I feel like I grew the most in my mentorship relationships, especially early on. I feel like I made very, very big leaps because I had people that I could learn from. And I'm trying to do that right now as well. It's harder and harder because there's no time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to do that consistently.
Got it. Awesome. What when you think about, and we touched on this a little bit, but I kind of want to kind of circle back on it because I can't stress enough, the importance of, I think, agencies being laser focused on what technology solutions they have. But even in addition to that, what, in your opinion, what's the real advantage to using a platform like Planable versus an all-in-one? Like, what are some things that really stand out, or what are maybe some examples of numbers or efficiencies, or just kind of, if you can kind of talk through a little bit about how clients are really, customers of yours have really leveraged the platform in ways that have been measurably meaningful for them.
Yeah. So you have two options. You either go with an all-in-one, and the advantage of that is that you don't need to switch tabs, and you have everything in one single place, and that's definitely a huge advantage in the age of productivity and focus. But at the same time, you just can't expect to get the best out of every single thing, every single module, and every single product out of that suite. With Planable, you just get the best in collaboration, and we laser focus on that. So you get, it was designed with collaboration in mind, and it's not an afterthought that a social media platform added because they realized that, okay, teams have grown and there's this huge need for collaboration. They haven't just slapped it on the existing product. It was really designed intentionally with teams in mind, and that makes it very well thought in terms of every touch point where you might need collaboration, where you might work together with someone. And we try to keep the team in the platform as much as possible and avoid use cases where they need to go on email or on Slack. The entire work needs to happen in Planable when it comes to like planning the content. And in terms of like numbers, we've asked our customers, hey, how much time do you think you're saving on content planning, before you were using spreadsheets and now you're using Planable? What's like the difference? And we've asked a bunch of customers, and the answers have come up from like 20 to 30%, specifically on content planning. That's how much time they're saying it's hard to quantify. Obviously, no one is like really, clocking their time on specifically on content planning, but that's what the feeling they had was. So it's really about time in the end, productivity and time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can speak firsthand that, I mean, at minimum, it's got to be 20 to 30% in time savings. I mean, we don't do time tracking per se, but, when there's a level of significance in the amount of time that is not needed when it comes to doing that back and forth and leveraging a variety of different tools. So I can definitely be a case study in that regard. It's definitely done that for us. So, and so what's the future hold for Planable? What are some things that you can talk about or share with the audience in terms of what's next? Not only for Planable, but your vision of software as a service platforms and where things are trending. But definitely, I'm kind of curious about where Planable is headed and what we have to look forward to.
Yeah, so I see this new wave of productivity tools more and more and more that are like unbundling spreadsheets basically for different use cases. So you can see collaboration for a video, for example, a bunch of tools that are doing that. Frame.io is one of them. I'm following the company quite closely. They're doing a great job. And then on the design space, lots of collaboration tools, Figma, InVision. Now you have like generic collaboration tools, Notion, Airtable. So it's like a huge wave of collaboration for verticals, for different formats of content. And I think that's, where the future is for, collaboration software and workflow software. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do this for content specifically, for everything that needs, content marketing. We're already doing that for social, but the future is to potentially expand into everything content, newsletters, ads, text, a bunch of other things, everything that marketers are producing for, branded content. We want to be at the center of that creative collaboration. That's our vision.
Awesome. Has I'm kind of curious. I mean, I've kind of been asking these questions of folks that have been talking to based on, the current landscape of our world and dealing with the pandemic. How has that impacted your business, if at all? I mean, I just to give a little context, obviously, it's impacted us as an agency in terms of whether clients have to pause something but I think the biggest thing is just we were already kind of a virtual based agency, and this new world. I think even when we get back to whatever our new normal is, I think so many more people are going to be thrust into a remote environment. So I'm just kind of curious: how has the current pandemic impacted your business, either negatively or positively?
Yeah, it has definitely made an impact. So there's two, angles to analyze this from. First of all, like the team internally. We had some kind of experience with remote work because we have two offices. So we have teams working from two different locations. And that means that we have lots of experience with Zoom calls and the struggle of Zoom calls, and working collaboratively online, Slack, and all of that. We had experience. It was a bit easier to transition to fully work from home, everyone remote. It was not that big of a leap. We definitely missed like the social part because still, two teams, but we still had that social, water cooler chats type of thing. So we definitely missed it. And from a customer perspective, we work with agencies and marketers, and this industry has been impacted. And, obviously we had to take a lot of care of, be very focused on our clients and be there for them. We've definitely seen quite some impact there. Not as bad as we expected, so that's good. But we've seen a slowdown in the entire growth in the industry. We've seen agencies that were just skyrocketing in terms of growth, and others not so much. Yeah. So we're really dependent on how our customers grow. So yeah, definitely an impact, good and bad at the same time. But in the end, I don't think it was as bad as we were bracing ourselves for this entire pandemic to be.
Okay, awesome. Well, last question is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think might be helpful that you'd want to share with the audience at all?
That's a good question. I think I just want to highlight a bit. I loved the entire focus on of this episode on focus and doing something niche. And I want to highlight that it's amazing if you have to do it, but I also want to, if you can do it, but I also want to highlight how hard it is to do it. It's really great to do it, but at the same time, it's so difficult to be so focused and be so intentional about what you're building. And it's just resist the requests that you're getting from outside, the pressure that you're getting from outside, the pressure that you're getting from customers, the pressure you're getting from, investors, markets, and so on. But I think that it is 100% worth it. Yeah. I think that's the future. And we can see it not only in software, but also in agencies. We can see it in the job industry. We can see it in almost everything. It's getting more and more focused, and specialists are more and more in need and in demand.
Yeah, you actually bring up a great point. It's this could be its own episode that I always talk about. Is as an individual professionally understanding, are you a breadth person or are you a depth person? Right?
Yeah.
Throughout my career, I always shied away and was afraid to admit what I knew, which was I'm a breadth guy. I like to do a lot of different things.
Me too.
And I don't like to do a singular thing and go really deep with it. So I always felt like that was an admission of not failure, but I felt like that might hold me back.
Yeah.
Until I realized that there is an equal amount of value in the world to be a breadth person as a depth person. So you usually, if you're a leader, if you're a CEO type or a manager of people, usually you're that breadth person. Or
right.
if that's not kind of how you're wired, you're probably more likely to be a depth person. You want to go deeper. You want to do that singular thing and just get really, really, really good at that. I always shied away from that. And once I started to embrace who I was in that regard, that's when things started to work for me.
I love this. I really love this. Yes,
so
I can't agree more with you.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is, as a person, just, realize who you are, embrace that, and follow a path that allows you to kind of take advantage of that.
Yeah, just that self-awareness about yourself. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I really enjoyed this. I love learning more about Planable, getting this insight. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for letting me butcher your name, which I probably will take me a while to get
pleasure.
right. But thank you so much for joining the show. We really look forward to continuing to work with you and seeing the platform evolve. And for those of you that are listening, definitely go and check out Planable. It's planable.io. They've been gracious to put together a little offer, 20% off your first 2 months if you mention the promo code Socialistics20. But again, thank you so much, Xenia, for joining us, and wish you all of the best and luck with continuing to evolve the platform.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really enjoyed this conversation. We should do that more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. This is the Socialistics Podcast. We will catch you at the next episode. Take care.